Chapter 51. This is a story that is both literal and figuratively bizarre. A long time ago, there was a family. The husband Ikuta and his wife Tomoka lived happily together. They also had a lovely daughter named Ikuta Asahi. Ikuta Asahi loved her parents very much, but her father was busy with work and often couldn't come home for several days in a row. Day by day, as she waited, Ikuta Asahi gradually became frustrated. She began to hate her father. Until one day, she returned home and found her mother, Tomoka, lying in a pool of blood, and the man standing next to her with his hands covered in blood turned out to be her father's coworker. Ikuta Asahi eventually escaped from that man, but her dead mother could not be revived. After losing her mother, Ikuta Asahi hated her father Ikuta more and more. If he hadn't been too busy with work and neglected his family, perhaps her mother wouldn't have died that day. If he hadn't made enemies at work and made his colleagues jealous, then no one would have killed her mother. It was all Ikuta's father's fault. After Ikuta resigned out of shame, he always stayed by his daughter's side to take care of her, but Ikuta Asahi still couldn't forgive him. One night, she ran away from home and died in a hotel by the sea. Before her death, Asahi had always harbored a deep hatred for her father. This hatred turned into a curse, binding her consciousness to the game that her father had been busy developing while he was still at the company. Since then, the curse associated with that strong hatred has gradually become an urban legend. It is said that after playing this game for 7 days, the player will die. No, there is an exception. In short, anyone who enters this game will be cursed by Ikuta Asahi's strong resentment. If they still haven't reached a happy ending by the 7th day, they will die painfully in the curse. Asahi said, "Many people have played this game, but they all died. No one can play a happy ending in the game." Because of his resentment for his father, Ikuta Asahi felt that committing suicide was not enough and was determined to let the curse affect countless innocent people. For a moment, Siddle didn't know what to say. But she also didn't want to discuss this matter with Ikuta Asahi any further. She asked, "Then how can you achieve a happy ending?" Ikuta Asahi, "I don't know. I don't know what the ending of Dad's game is. The game Dad created was originally a horror game. It didn't know because it was always hovering around its mother's soul." Siddle picked up the doll, sadly poking it a few times. "So how do I get out of here?" The doll moved, was silent for a moment, then said, "Can you guarantee that if I leave here, I won't come back?" "You were the one who dragged me here in the first place," Siddle said, "isn't that right? If I could escape from here, of course I wouldn't come back, and there's no way to come back." Asahi seemed a little hesitant. Freya is a small town surrounded by a river. Siddle saw the river flowing outside the window, and on the other side of the small river was an unknown darkness. "But in the game, only this town is under my curse," Asahi said. "Leaving Freya means you can leave this illusion and return to the game world. When you leave here, I will also leave this doll. At that time, I will lift the curse for you and bring you and your friends back to the real world." Siddle held the doll and walked to the window. She was wearing 2 layers of clothes, and did not feel cold in the night wind, but Ikuta Asahi in her hand was trembling inexplicably. She calmly looked across the river. Darkness covered everything. She caressed the window bars and suddenly asked softly, "What is outside Freya?" "Asahi, it's another village, but it's not dangerous." "If that's the case." Siddle thought deeply, and suddenly smiled sweetly. She gently poked the doll's head. "Then Asahi, come with me and leave the illusion. Freya, we can go back together. The world of the game, the real Freya village." The doll's head moved. "It's useless for you to take me. Even if I leave the Freya prison, I won't be able to return to the game world. I am the source of the illusion." Siddle didn't seem to care. She tightened the drawstring of her coat, rummaged through the closet to find a handheld flashlight. When she stuffed the Asahi doll into her coat pocket, Siddle heard the little girl's panicked voice, "Wait." Siddle ignored it and pushed the doll deep into her pocket. When she walked to the living room, she saw Tomoka and Slender Man leaning against each other. The demon and the woman were passionately entwined, living together sweetly. Slender Man's 2 tentacles were even very flexible as they massaged Tomoka's shoulders. Siddle asked to go out to play with Slender Man but was rejected as expected. Tomoka said to Siddle, "Asahi, you can only go out to play when you're well." Of course, Slender Man listened to Tomoka. Siddle was taken straight back to his room by Tomoka. Before Tomoka closed the door, Siddle vaguely heard Asahi's gleeful laughter. "I told you to wait. Look, we've been discovered now. How can we go out?" But before he could finish laughing, then saw Siddle quickly start packing. Literally wrapping up, she twisted the bed sheet into a rope, tied it to the foot of the bed, and after testing the tightness, without hesitation, let the rope down from the 2nd floor to the ground, then slowly tried to climb down. Asahi said worriedly, "Why are you so reckless? Going back isn't something you can do right away. If only I had an easier way." Siddle laughed emotionlessly, grabbed the rope and climbed down, her voice indifferent. "Then you don't need to go out now. After all," she concluded, "it's because I'm so useless." Asahi. She was so angry that she couldn't speak anymore. Siddle fell to the ground, staggering for a while before regaining her footing. She turned on the flashlight, looking at the misty riverbank in the distance. She tied her coat tightly, walked slowly, stood still in the increasingly humid air, and looked down at the layer of damp soil under her feet. Asahi didn't make any sound, there was no wind, no water, the surroundings were strangely quiet. Siddle stood on the riverbank for a long time. She tried to use the flashlight to illuminate the opposite side, but the light only reached 2 or 3 meters, she could only see the red iron ore on the ground. She stood there for a while, then suddenly heard the sound of a dog barking. The sound seemed to come from a very far place on the other side. The dog barking was faint, but Siddle could feel the sadness and desolation of a human being in it. Siddle's cold slender fingers pressed Asahi into her coat pocket. "Tell me, what's on the other side?" "It's just a small village over there." Asahi seemed a little impatient. "And whatever it is, it has nothing to do with me. You just need to leave Freya. The moment you leave here you will return to your body immediately." "Really?" Siddle laughed, a cold, clear laugh, without any emotion. "Then come with me," she said, walking away as she spoke. "Wait a minute, Asahi suddenly shouted agitatedly. "No, don't take me there." "Siddle, isn't there any danger? Why don't you want to go there?" The little girl sighed sadly. "Is it that Asahi doesn't want to go there with you? Then fine, as your older sister, I'll have to send Asahi off first." She took out the doll, as if preparing to throw it to the other side. "Don't!" Asahi shouted in horror. "Don't throw me away, I'll tell you everything." "Tell me." Siddle's expression was calm, she no longer looked at the other side, but quietly took a few steps back, slowly walking towards Tomoka's house. "I really don't know what's on the other side." Asahi's first sentence made Siddle stop in her tracks. She began to wonder if she had left that river too soon. "What I said is the truth." Asahi seemed to have guessed Siddle's thoughts, and quickly said, "My ability can only affect the game world created by my father, but there are many more places outside of Freya that I have never been to, and I don't know what's in those places." But, its voice changed from arrogant to trembling with fear. "I know, absolutely do not step out of here, there are many scary things outside." "Is Freya a real village in Japan?" Siddle asked. She didn't care that Asahi was lying to her. Siddle knew from the start that it was making things up. "Let's just say it's real," Asahi said ambiguously. "Anyway, I don't know what's out there, but it's definitely not something good." Siddle looked pensive. She absent-mindedly stuffed Asahi back into her pocket. "So you don't know how to leave here either?" "I could have let you leave." Asahi seemed to be gritting her teeth. "But even I'm dragged into the illusion now, so of course. Now even it couldn't leave on its own." Siddle thought of another candidate, wondering if Slender Man had any way, but she quickly gave up on her idea. She Was afraid that Slender Man would want to spend more time with Tomoka in the illusion to spend a sweet honeymoon together, so of course he wouldn't help her. Right now, the best way was probably to play to the end of the game. Siddle brought Asahi to Tomoka's house. At first, she thought she still needed to slowly explore this place on her own. But who would have thought that the next day, after a strange man holding a sharp weapon tried to break into the house and was mocked by Slender Man, the scene before her eyes was distorted and shattered. Siddle woke up on the cold floor. She propped herself up with her hands and looked around. It was the hall filled with dining tables before she passed out. Siddle dusted herself off, held onto the table leg and stood up, suddenly hearing a panicked and angry sound coming from beside her. Why am I still in here? Ikuta Asahi's panicked voice came from the small doll lying on the floor, looking a little funny. Siddle thought for a few seconds, then bent down to pick it up. She dusted the doll off, stuffed it into her bag, and said casually as she walked out, "Maybe it's because I did so many bad things that I'm getting retribution now." Because of her own resentment, she had caused so many innocent people to die miserably, and she didn't have the slightest bit of remorse. At this moment Ikuta Asahi was truly panicked. "I won't be locked in here forever, don't. Siddle ignored it. She had already reached the door of the hall. Outside was a dark world. In the crack there were a few wild grasses swaying gently in the cold wind. Siddle felt her phone vibrate. Someone sent her a message. She took out her phone and opened it to see that it was indeed Jacqueline. "Siddle, where are you? I just passed by a dark cemetery. It was really scary. Luckily I got through safely. I'm now next to a lake. There's green algae everywhere. There's also an iron door on the other side. I don't know where to go. Can you come pick me up? It looks really dangerous here." It seemed that Jacqueline was fine. Let's see, the lake, the green algae, and the iron door. Siddle looked around and walked around the village, but she didn't see any such scene. The phone in her hand was still vibrating non-stop. "Siddle, are you here yet? Siddle, why haven't I seen you yet? Where are you now? I'm so cold, so cold." Siddle frowned and sent the girl a message back. "I still haven't found my way, please wait a moment." Perhaps because she received a reply, the person on the other end of the phone became quieter. After a long while, Jacqueline only texted back one sentence. "Okay, I'll wait for you." Siddle thought for a moment, then carried Asahi out to ask about the situation. She didn't know if this stubborn girl had suffered too much of a blow in her life as a demon, but now she was hanging limply in her arms. Hearing Siddle's question, it seemed like it didn't even have the strength to make a sound. It slowly replied, "This game has cursed many people. After they died, those people all turned into spirits. Maybe they are in every corner of this village. I don't know which lake because they will change the landscape here." Siddle stuffed it back into its original place. She checked the village again, and found a small mud path in the corner of a lush lawn. The mud was dry and sticky, the roadside was full of thorns. Deep inside the path there was the faint sound of running water, and it looked cold and gloomy. Siddle held her breath and licked her lips. Her heart rate increased. She held the doll tightly in her arms, sending a message to Jacqueline. "Are you still at the lake? It seems like I'm almost there." Immediately after, Jacqueline texted her back. "Where are you going? Hurry up, I'm scared." "Siddle, I'm walking on a small path full of thorns. I don't know which way to go. Can you show me?" "Then we're very close, come here quickly." Siddle stared at the words, her heart beating a little faster. Her palms were covered in sweat, but her fingers were still steady as she typed. Siddle stood at the intersection, slowly took 2 steps back and replied to Jacqueline. "But this path has a fork. I'm lost. Do you know the way there?"